Welcome to the channel once again. I think we're going to do some clouds here. A demo about clouds, but I found this image on my iPad and I zoomed it in from what it is. The clouds are just kind of too much for one painting and would maybe be unbelievable. So this is what we're going to do here today. And I was just going to do the clouds, just do a cloud demo, but it'd be a fairly simple painting to complete in a short time here, so let's get going. So I'm just going to start by wetting the cloud area, wetting the sky here, just with clean water. That's all I'm going to do. Just put some clean water on it, right up to the, we can go to the horizon line here, and make sure that's wet down here. That'll be fairly light colored by the time we get down there. And we just want to make sure it's all covered. You can leave some dry areas and that'll result in some hard edges on the clouds that you can soften later if you just add water, as long as it's not dry. But I'm going to wet the whole sky here. And I don't know if you can see it, but from the side you can see how wet this paper is. And I'll put away this big brush here. I'll grab some paper towel. And what I'll do is I'll just dry that off, so the paper will end up being damp pretty much everywhere here. I can go down into this, doesn't matter. And I've got some cobalt blue mixed up, so we grab a little bit smaller brush here, just so we can make some cloud shapes in here. And actually I don't have cobalt blue mixed up, but I've got it in my tray here. I'll mix it up here now. So it's wet now and my table's at an angle, so it's going to want to go straight down, and sometimes you can pick up your work and turn it sideways, but I'm not going to do that in this case because the painting will disappear and you won't have much to look at. So we'll start just laying down some blues here. You can get rid of that hair right away if you do, or you could leave it and fix it later if it needs fixing at all. So we got a little, on this side here, we got lighter clouds on the left side and the darker on the right. So I don't want to go too dark on the left, but you can cover pretty much everything here. And you don't really worry about these cloud shapes at this point. You just want to make sure that you cover all the paper, don't leave any hard edges there. That's what you're supposed to do. And so we're just going to go a little bit, add a little bit of red to this. So you can just make that a little bit more purple here. So I've got a little hair here. I'm just going to leave that one there for now. We'll see what happens to it. And a little bit more red in here, like that. A little bit more red mixed with that cobalt blue, that what I was doing there. And then here, I have some cobalt teal blue, and I kind of like the color in the sky here in the top middle right here, so I'm just going to throw a little bit of that in there. It tends to look a little green when I put it on here, but it should work out okay. If it doesn't, we'll change it. So then once you've done the sky like this, you don't really want to get into it and fuss too much with it. You get into a little bit of cat orange. I'm just going to drop that into the wet here and take that right across to there, and a little bit of cat orange, and in your palette just make sure you don't have too much of it on your brush because it'll be too much to try to dilute it later. So we can make a few little clouds here, cloud shapes. I'm just looking at my reference photo here, and that's about it for there. Now down here at the horizon line, I'm just going to darken that a little bit, and I've got a little bit of burnt umber, cobalt blue, and cat orange mixed up here, and I'm going to just drop that right in the bottom here because it's got some darker clouds right around the horizon with lighter clouds above it, so above them. Do that, and then I'm just going to come gray that off a little bit and just take that right across the horizon line here. I'm going to have some trees on that horizon line, but I can put them in after. And I'm dropping brush hairs on the painting here. There, and that'll do it there. So the trick is for doing clouds, I usually use, well, I don't always, but I can use a paper towel in this case here. And you can kind of bunch it up and make a flat edge or whatever you want to do here, but keep it kind of roundish. And then I'm going to look at the clouds that I have here and just try to make those cloud shapes there by lifting color off of the paper, and it'll make these cloud highlights in here and those in there and whatnot. And it doesn't have to be exactly, you know, what you've done here, and they'll kind of show up wherever you. And you don't want to rub the paper, you want to more kind of dab. And then have a look and see what it's doing. Like in these spots where there's cad orange, you can kind of go in the middle of those areas and join those two clouds together in there. Now this is going to be quite a bit darker in here, so I'm going to just put a little bit of a highlight in here. You can go just lightly like that and make some interesting little patterns and shapes. And then down here, before it dries too much, I'm going to get a clean corner of this paper towel, and there's some lighter colored clouds in here that the sun is reflecting on. And that might be okay there. And leave a little bit of a darker gap there. Now reel around this horizon line. There's a bunch of little distant little cumulus clouds building in the distance here. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to make that dark hair anyway. So it's quite dark down in here, so I'm going to leave that. That hair I don't like, but there's nothing really I can do with it now unless I put another cloud in there, but too much is maybe too much, so I might just leave that in there. That may look like a little too orange there, but just lighten it up on the cad orange. And that's all right there now. So I'm going to take my paper towel right along the edge here, and I'm just going to pick up the excess pigment that's starting to pool down there. And it actually makes some interesting effects if you leave a little bit of it in there. And then this here doesn't look quite right, so I'm going to fix it. That's the thing about watercolor, you just kind of have a look and see what it wants and see how it looks and make changes as you go. Now it's darker in here, I'm pointing, you can't see, darker to the top right here, so I'm tempted to put that in, but it's sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it'll just run into the pigment that you've already put on there and kind of ruin things for you. So, but I'm really kind of liking the stormy look to that, so I'm going to go ahead and do it, and we're going to see what happens. So it's quite dark, so I just get a little bit of neutral gray, neutral tint, and mix it in with some pre-mixed kind of purples here. That's looking pretty good. And as long as that's not too dry, this will work out here. And so just right above that dark area there, I'll throw that in there. And here, and I'm going to put it in there, but I don't want to put it in there when it's this dark. Leave that in between. A little bit of here. I'm just going to diffuse a little bit of it there. And right underneath these clouds, there's some more here. Okay, now that looks pretty strong. What you can do is you can go into the brush. If I put a wet brush into there, it's just going to diffuse that totally and blend the two, and I'll lose my highlight in the middle. So I'm just going to see what happens when I soften that middle with this paper towel here, and then I can go in afterwards. And then blend it a little bit better. I don't really want the hard edges under the clouds here, any hard edges with this at all here. I know I said don't rub, but you can a little bit, and I got rid of those. There. I'll leave that in there for now. So I'm going to make a mess of it. And that one, I'm going to let it dry a little bit more before I pluck that hair off. So it's persistent. I'm liking that a little bit here, and then it's not looking too bad. And then what I can do is I can go in here and I can just blend this a little bit here. Just with some clean water, and not too much because you don't want the water to start running on you. A lot of this you're going to have to wait until it dries to really see what it looks like. And then that, I'm really tempted to grab that out of there, but I'm going to leave that hair there for now and just have a look for some hard edges and see if there's anything I don't like in there. And it's not looking too bad. Right there. Okay, now before this dries on the horizon line too much, I'm going to want to let my trees bloom from the horizon line up. There are some distant mountains in this photo and all that, but I'm not going to worry about that because you won't even see them in the photograph. So I'm just going to mix up some pigment here, some color for those distant trees. So it's going to have to be a little bit blue. So I'm going to grab a little bit of green, and then I'm going to cool it off with some blue. And it's probably, if I look at it at an angle, I can see it's really wet here, right where the paper's starting to curl a little bit. This is 140-pound paper, so it's actually pretty good at drying. And there's some nice effects here, some nice granulation in this paper. It is rough paper, and so it tends to create some texture for you, where the pigment follows the little lows in the rough texture and works its way down the page because I've got this at an angle. You get a spot of color like that, I just rub that out with my finger. I'm just so used to doing that, either with that or a paper towel. You can dab over it and it's gone. You can get rid of it if it bugs you here. So I'm going to do these trees. It looks fairly strong in the photograph, and I think in the contrast with the sky I'm going to have to go fairly strong too. So I'll go in with the first layer here, and then we'll just see how it looks here. We got trees, there's trees kind of here, some distant ones. I'm going to let that bloom there. Yeah, I'm going to go down a little bit into this dry area. And see what that did is it did create a little highlight below there and a little bit of detail there. I'm going to go over that with some green after. Yeah, I'm going to go in a little bit stronger here. What I'm using is Undersea green, and then I'm cooling it off with some Cobalt and blue. And I might have to go over that again because it's getting really distant there. And you can see it crawl up the page into the wet paper here. I'm going to leave a few gaps for interest, and then there's some more trees here that are a little bit taller. And pretty much paints itself, if you look at this. And there's a dark line right on the horizon here, so I'm going to kind of go right across here. I'm going to try to get my hand out of the way so you can see what to do. Go all the way across here. So just a little bit of neutral tint here as the paper dries. If you want to know what these colors are that I'm using exactly, just leave a comment in the video and I'll answer. So that's bloomed quite nicely. Now I'm afraid that if I put in the green field below that, it's going to bloom up as well into this other part, and so I can't put that in until this is dry on this horizon line here. But what I will do is I'm just going to put a little bit of detail, maybe some sepia color down over here, and that's going to darken things and blend with what I've already put in there. And that's enough. I don't like that edge, how it just ends right there, so I'm just going to help it along there. There, that looks better. There, that's looking pretty good. So actually I can start with that next section there if I don't touch into that tree line too much. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to get a little bit bigger brush because we need to load up a little more pigment here. This is a number 12 Escoda Perla. Yeah, I'm going to grab some color here and I'm going to put that in. But the only preliminary drawing I've done on this painting is just this horizon line here, and I just put it in faintly. So I'm going to go across here and try not to touch that next little area. Not to touch that tree line too much here. It looks like it's drying actually quite nicely. So I want that fairly wet. Yeah, I'm just going to leave a few of the little highlights in there. There's not much green on this distant field here, and this field, this color is a little bit too green for that distance, so I'm going to soften that up a little bit or cool it off a little bit. I actually don't mind it here, and I don't mind that glow, so I'm actually going to leave most of that there, but I might grade off a little bit. Let's see what it looks like here in spot. There, I'm just going to leave that like that. So the next section of this field, I'm just going to compare the photograph here now, is lighter colored. So I've got a color called Burgandy Yellow Ochre, which is actually kind of a khaki color, light brown, kind of like that. And if I mix a little bit of white with it, titanium white, it should end up being the color that I want for that field. Now you can make that field whatever color you want anyway, but if you're trying to make it look like the photograph. That'll do for now. So I'm just going to go across here with the next layer. And if I go across quickly on this rough paper as my